Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of our ongoing deep dive into the legendary figures of Hollywood's golden era. Today, we're unfolding the remarkable life story of an actress whose journey might surprise you with its mixture of gleaming triumphs and heartbreaking lows. Get comfortable, because we're about to travel back in time to explore the vivid tapestry that shaped the woman the world came to know as Jennifer Jones, a star whose destiny from a very early age seemed written in the bright lights of the entertainment world. Our tale begins in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in 1919, when a baby girl named Phyllis Isley was welcomed into the world. She was an only child, but that doesn't mean her childhood was dull. Far from it. Her parents were traveling performers, part of a theater troupe that brought its shows to all sorts of American towns. Imagine the swirl of curtains, the smell of grease paint, the hush of an audience waiting to be dazzled, then the applause and laughter echoing in small auditoriums or big city theaters. All these theatrical sights and sounds became the background music to young Phyllis's early years. Like a budding flower soaking up the morning sun, she thrived in this environment and saw a certain magic in the stage lights that danced across foot-worn boards. Even at the age of 10, she had already told her parents that one day she would be a Broadway star. That was her dream, as natural to her as breathing. Her first significant taste of formal education came at a convent school called Monte Cassino back in Tulsa. Some might have found that environment restrictive, but not Phyllis. By day, she immersed herself in books, devouring every chance to learn. By night, she still carried that dream of stardom, imagining herself on glamorous stages in front of mesmerized crowds. After finishing at Monte Cassino, she spent a summer performing in stock theater productions. If you can picture it, these were simpler times with small venues where actors honed their craft in front of local audiences. It was an apprenticeship of sorts, building the raw talent that she'd been carrying around since she was a little girl, traveling with her parents. Always eager for more, she enrolled in the drama department at Northwestern University, where she studied the nuts and bolts of acting. Even though her time there was brief, just a semester, she absorbed what she could, refining her stage presence and learning to appreciate the discipline behind building a believable character. But soon, the bright lights of big cities called her name, and she traded the structured environment of Northwestern for the irresistible pull of New York City. Could there be a more thrilling place in America to chase a dream? Upon arriving in the bustling, dynamic streets of New York, she enrolled at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. For anyone who's ever nurtured theatrical aspirations, this was the place to be. Surrounded by like-minded individuals, she was challenged, encouraged, critiqued, and elevated. It was here, in the throes of rehearsals and scene work, that fate played its hand. She met a young actor named Robert Walker. Like Phyllis, he was driven by his own ambitions. If you passed them on the street, you might have simply seen two wide-eyed actors hustling for a breakout moment. But to each other, they were kindred spirits who recognized the sparkle of mutual determination. Robert's past had been tough. He'd faced personal struggles that threatened to derail his future. Yet in Phyllis, he found empathy and hope. She, for her part, discovered someone who believed in her dream just as fiercely as she did. Before they knew it, their friendship blossomed into love. On January 2nd, 1939, exactly a year after they first crossed paths, they got married. It was a union built on shared aspirations, the adrenaline rush of big city life, and the underlying promise that they could conquer the industry together. After the wedding, they turned their honeymoon into a trip to Hollywood, the glittering domain that ignited the hearts of all who dreamed of being on screen. This romantic getaway planted a tiny seed in Phyllis's mind, Perhaps her dream wasn't just Broadway. Maybe the silver screen held even greater allure. In Hollywood, she signed a 6-month contract with Republic Pictures, a studio that was open to new faces. Swiftly, she landed a small part in a John Wayne project, an opportunity that, for many, would be a thrilling beginning. Her presence was magnetic. Everyone on set recognized something special about her, a subtle brilliance that made audiences lean forward in their seats. This led her to a part in a 15-part serial called Dick Tracy's G-Men, which was about as action-packed and energetic as it sounds. However, despite this early success, she felt stifled. She was grateful for the chance, but she sensed that bigger artistic endeavors were on the horizon, roles that would truly challenge her as an actress. So with Robert's support, she stepped away from that contract, and the young couple returned to New York, determined to seize the theatrical opportunities on Broadway. But, as we often find, fate had different ideas. Their daily lives shifted dramatically when they became parents. Their 2 sons, Robert Jr., born in 1940, and Michael, born about a year later, turned the couple into a busy little family. While Robert struggled to gain footing in his acting career, he managed some work in radio. Meanwhile, Phyllis filled in modeling gigs here and there to help pay the bills. Mostly, though, she cherished motherhood and the joy of raising her children. It was a slower, more domestic life than the one she'd envisioned, but it was also full of love. Then, in a dramatic pivot, Phyllis was approached by someone from York with a huge opportunity, an audition for the lead role in a film adaptation of a successful Broadway play called Claudia, written by Rose Franken. Word of her potential had apparently circulated, and David O. Selznick, the legendary producer, married at the time to Irene Mayer Selznick, got wind of her name. He saw the screen test and recognized an indefinable spark that made him think she could carry a movie. Ultimately, she signed a contract with his studio, launching a collaboration that would define the next chapter of her life. Selznick himself was captivated by her. Whether it was her unique combination of sweet innocence and underlying steeliness, or simply a cosmic alignment of opportunity and skill, she left a lasting impression on him. Over the next 3 years, Selznick took a keen interest in her progress. She was groomed, taught, shaped, and introduced to a broader world. She took classes in literature and fine arts at Columbia University, studies arranged by Selznick to refine her taste and intellect, to ensure she wasn't just another pretty face, but a well-rounded actress capable of depth and nuance. It was also at Selznick's urging that she took on her new name, Jennifer Jones. Certain critics derided the name as bland or uninspired. One particularly sharp reviewer declared it the worst screen name in the business. Yet, for better or worse, that's the name that stuck, and history has proven that name to be unforgettable. Selznick's ambition for her was boundless. He wanted to introduce her to the world with the grandeur befitting a star. And so he found the perfect vehicle for her breakout performance, an adaptation of the novel The Song of Bernadette. This was the tale of Bernadette Soubirous, a French girl from Lourdes who in 1858 had visions of the Virgin Mary. It was a large-scale project with heavy religious and dramatic undertones, particularly challenging territory for a newcomer. But Jennifer stepped up, determined to inhabit the role with every ounce of sincerity she could muster. The director, Henry King, guided her carefully, and she was bolstered by a sterling cast that included the likes of Gladys Cooper, Vincent Price, Charles Bickford, Anne Revere, and Lee J. Cobb. It was a rigorous experience, not just emotionally, but also in terms of physical energy, focus, and discipline. The enormity of the shoot wore on her, and tension rippled through her marriage. Robert was supportive, but he was still struggling for a breakthrough. Meanwhile, Selznick's unstoppable drive didn't allow for half measures. Every day was about perfecting the performance, capturing the right angles, coaxing the right emotional nuances. Jennifer found herself in a whirlwind that tested her limits. When The Song of Bernadette finally premiered, it made a splash in all the major cities: Tulsa, her hometown, Los Angeles, and New York. The reviews were nothing short of ecstatic. Critics and audiences alike were astonished by the authenticity of her portrayal. This fresh-faced performer, newly rechristened Jennifer Jones, became the talk of Hollywood. She was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actress alongside industry heavyweights Greer Garson, Joan Fontaine, Ingrid Bergman, and Jean Arthur. When her name was called as the winner, she was astounded, nearly speechless. Selznick had gambled big on her, and the gamble paid off in a spectacular way. Yet, amid this euphoria, a personal trial was looming. In an almost shocking move, and some would say it was downright sadistic, Selznick decided to cast Jennifer opposite her husband Robert Walker in Since You Went Away, a wartime drama about lovers separated by conflict. Production started even before The Song of Bernadette finished its own publicity cycle. Initially, this might have seemed to be a perfect setup. Two married co-stars, both talented and committed. But behind the scenes, turmoil brewed. Jennifer announced that she and Robert were separating, which created a tense atmosphere on set. Selznick did not recast the role and continued to pursue a personal relationship with Jennifer, even though he was still married. Rumors flew, tabloids had a field day, and poor Robert was caught in the crossfire. By the end, though, the film turned out to be a box office sensation, further validating Jennifer's rising star status. Her performance garnered an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Despite the complicated personal drama, her professional acclaim kept building. In 1945, she was yet again up for an Oscar for her performance in Love Letters, starring alongside Joseph Cotten. But this time, she also finalized her divorce from Robert, adding another emotional layer to an already weighty existence. She continued pushing her boundaries in the types of roles she took. In Duel in the Sun, a Western that raised eyebrows among critics who doubted she could convincingly play such a part, she proved her detractors wrong. The movie, released in 1946, created a stir, sometimes referred to as Lust in the Dust, for its provocative tone. Critics were polarized, but she garnered yet another Best Actress nomination. However, this time, Olivia de Havilland took home the trophy, leaving Jennifer to reconcile the many swirling elements of her life, her mounting fame, her complicated relationship with Selznick, and her artistic ambitions. After they married, Jennifer and Selznick made Europe a sort of second home, often traveling back and forth between there and the United States. She became pregnant, only to experience a devastating miscarriage in her 6th month while filming a period piece called Carrie. This tragedy shook her deeply. Then, shortly afterward, her ex-husband Robert Walker died under mysterious circumstances in August 1951. He was just in his early 30s. The whole ordeal haunted Jennifer, layering guilt and sadness on top of her already substantial emotional burdens. Meanwhile, Selznick's health started to wane, and financial pressures arose. He struggled with debts, and heart disease became a real concern. Still, his desire to promote Jennifer never ceased. He acquired the film rights to F. Scott Fitzgerald's Tender is the Night, with Jennifer slated to play Nicole, a character that Fitzgerald had modeled on his troubled wife, Zelda. However, as Selznick's health declined, so did Jennifer's popularity in the eyes of mainstream moviegoers. Tastes were changing, new stars were emerging, and her husband's once omnipotent influence on the industry had begun to slip. The last major project they shared was a brief play called The Man with the Perfect Wife, performed in Florida. Its run was brief, and soon after it closed, Selznick suffered a heart attack and died. This plunged Jennifer into seclusion for about 6 months, deeply grieving. Now in her mid-40s, she found herself facing life alone for the first time. Eventually, she returned to film. In 1966, she stepped in for an ailing Kim Hunter in a movie called The Idol. Unfortunately, critics ravaged it, and audiences ignored it. It quickly vanished from theaters. Looking for a stage role that might rekindle her creative spark, she was offered a revival of The Country Girl by Lee Strasberg. Reportedly, she had been the original choice for that role back when it was first adapted. However, her performance in that City Center production was not well received, and once the run ended, she slipped back into a reclusive lifestyle, feeling the tension between her once radiant fame and her current professional struggles. Instead, she found a more personal kind of fulfillment, volunteering with the Los Angeles-based Manhattan Project, which provided support and therapy for emotionally troubled and substance-addicted young people. Jennifer poured her heart and her resources into the cause. She hosted teens at her home, letting them swim in her pool, play tennis, and just talk about life. It was an unexpected but much-needed outlet, a channel for her compassion that not only helped others, but also helped her find new meaning. During this philanthropic chapter, love found a way back into her life in 1971 when she met billionaire industrialist and art collector Norton Simon. He was deeply involved with the art world and had a controlling interest in 20th Century Fox stock. Their whirlwind courtship led to marriage within weeks of meeting. With that union, she stepped into a different sphere of society, one in which the focus was on art galleries, philanthropic events, and corporate dealings, rather than auditions and lights on a soundstage. Yet there was one last screen appearance on the horizon, though the impetus, according to rumor, might have been connected to Simon's influence at 20th Century Fox. Just as Jennifer was finding some balance in her new life, tragedy struck again. Her daughter, Mary Jennifer, only 21 years old, took her own life, jumping from a building. This devastated Jennifer in a way few can comprehend. She was consumed by grief, questioning how she could have prevented it, and the guilt nearly overwhelmed her. Yet in an effort to process that anguish, she emerged with a renewed dedication to the cause of mental health. She donated a substantial sum, $1 million, to establish the Jennifer Jones Simon Foundation for Mental Health and Education. It was her intention to honor Mary Jennifer's memory by pushing forward initiatives that would help vulnerable people struggling with mental illness. It became a lifeline, giving Jennifer a sense of mission beyond the screens that had once defined her. She stayed active in society as a philanthropist and arts patron. There were occasional talks about a comeback, a role here or there that might get her back into the spotlight, but none of those projects fully materialized. In 1984, misfortune struck once more when Norton Simon was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, a nerve disease that leads to progressive muscle weakness. Jennifer devoted herself to caring for him until his death in 1993. Over the ensuing years, she made very few public appearances, preferring a more private, introspective life, though she kept her philanthropic endeavors running. The twinkling star that once dominated the screen had shifted its glow to more humanitarian pursuits. Finally, on December 17, 2009, Jennifer Jones passed away from natural causes at the age of 90. She had lived nearly a century, witnessing firsthand the astonishing evolution of entertainment, from traveling theater troupes and radio dramas to the golden age of Hollywood and beyond. Her final resting place is in Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, alongside so many other luminaries of Tinseltown. She left behind a legacy that was neither simple nor straightforward. On the one hand, she was that luminous star who delivered an iconic performance in the Song of Bernadette, taking home an Oscar at an age when most of us would barely be starting to figure out our place in the world. On the other hand, her personal journey was fraught with heartbreak and shadows, from the collapse of her first marriage to the loss of children, spouses, and ultimately, her own cherished illusions about the industry's fairy tale illusions. And so, as we reflect on Jennifer Jones, born Phyllis Isley, a bright-eyed girl from Tulsa, we see a figure who was always in search of a deeper truth, whether that was through the characters she portrayed on screen or the empathy she shared with troubled teens in her later years. She pursued stardom with unwavering determination and soared to heights most can only dream about, yet also experienced more than her share of sorrow. Hers is a life story that invites us to marvel at the precarious balance between fame and personal fulfillment, between bright spotlights and the hush of heartbreak. That brings us to a close on today's feature, but her story should encourage each of us to keep looking for the next incredible account from Hollywood's golden age, tales that reveal the artistry, the heartbreak, and the unwavering resilience behind the glitz. If you're as fascinated as we are by stories of perseverance, ambition, and the complicated dance between public adoration and private pain, then be sure to stay tuned for future videos where we'll explore more legends, more enigmas, and more souls whose footprints are etched into the history of show business. We hope you'll join us again soon as we keep celebrating the luminaries of yesteryear, examining their journeys in all their glory and heartbreak, and learning lessons about life, love, and the pursuit of artistic expression. Until next time, may Jennifer Jones's extraordinary path remind you that behind the cameras, beyond the star billing, and hidden within the applause, there's always a uniquely human story unfolding. We appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to bring you more captivating retrospectives. Thanks for being part of our cinematic adventure, and we'll see you again in our next video.